Today, I thought I would discuss something different, but very important when manifesting, especially your SP and money success specifically, because I want to take a deep dive into some of the lesser known signs that your manifestation is arriving. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, well, hold on a minute, Francis. You said, as within, so without. You either have it or you don't. And you would be correct. That still applies. What I'm highlighting today is what or whom is creating those signs, because we can't deny that when we're working to fulfill that complete manifestation of being in a loving relationship or having that monetary amount within us, the outside world, that 3D reflected reality, will shift at every stage along that journey, however long it takes. Sometimes it happens so fast we don't even notice, whereas other times we see it unfold. And if I don't mention these signs, and more importantly what you need to do when you experience them, then you may fall into a common trap I see a lot of clients make who call me for a manifestation diagnosis. So I know this video is going to be helpful to keep you on track and building that trust in that process. So for those of you who have just joined us, my name's Francis, and I teach the biblical approach to becoming a conscious manifester. However, unlike other channels, I specialise in removing authority layer by layer from the identity that is causing you to repeatedly recreate the same reality you're using those techniques to leave. Because what's more valuable than how to use a manifestation technique? Knowing your human self well enough to never mistake it for I am divine consciousness. So I'm going to give you 5 unusual signs in manifestation, and I'll warn you now, most of them don't look like progress at all when they're happening. But first, you need to understand why signs work the way they do, because if you skip this part, you'll actually misread every single one of them. So a little known fact is they never precede the shift. They actually follow it. It's not that the sign appears and then you notice it. It's that your internal state decided months of nervous system work ago that would even be allowed to register as a sign. So make no mistake, the sign was pre-selected by the shift, not the other way around, which is why, and I see this happening all the time, if you watch this video here, I'll put it on screen, you'll notice I saw what they were doing and how they were treating me completely change over the course of about 4 hours. But at no point did I think, it's changing, my manifestation is coming. Please don't fall for that trap. Because if you say that or think it, you're actually putting yourself in the identity of it's coming and not remaining in it's already here. Very important. You see, your human attention isn't neutral, it's a filter system, right? Now, you've probably heard of this, it's called the reticular activating system, but what they don't tell you is the RAS is simply your brain's doorman, which doesn't explain why it picks the signs it picks. What's actually happening underneath is more important, and it's called value tagging. Before anything even reaches the RAS, your brain has already assigned it emotional or survival importance. Your amygdala tags it into 2 categories, matters to me or completely irrelevant. And the RAS knows it can only let the already tagged important stuff through the door. So really the RAS isn't deciding anything, it's just following orders. It's the value tagging that decided who's on the guest list long before you consciously noticed anything. And none of this is actually mystical pattern spotting, for all it agrees with spirituality. It's actually your own nervous system deciding in advance what counts as evidence. Now that doesn't mean you have to do nervous system work to manifest. What it does mean is that consistently practicing a new identity is what reshapes your nervous system. So seeing any signs is actually confirmation of that change within you, not something sent to you from the external world to give you hope. let's say you've been using techniques to manifest the internal state of I'm chosen. You will start seeing inclusion cues everywhere once you're in it. Just as if you were someone who's decided I never get picked, I'm always rejected, you'll only notice rejection cues. Now, whether the world suddenly changed is up to your spiritual beliefs, right? I do. But what we do know for sure is your filter did change. And if the filter changed first, that tells you something. By the time you consciously spot the sign, the internal shift already happened. The sign is just the lagging indicator. It was never the cause. So here's the part that genuinely is quite uncomfortable, but I need to say this directly so you don't waste your time. Checking for signs itself is performed from the state of not having. If you're refreshing your phone hoping for a synchronicity or asking, was that a sign? Or you go to meet up with your SP hoping they'll confirm what you've been doing is working, that very question is evidence you're still living in lack. The old identity hasn't changed. And since it's your state, not your technique that the filter organises around, the checking behaviour will reinforce the exact state you're trying to exit, you're trying to change. So doing that doesn't just fail to help, it actively feeds the wrong assumption. Which is why the act of hunting for them actually proves you haven't changed yet. Just as if you're ignoring the 3D because you want to avoid triggers, it's a sign you haven't changed yet. So the question is, if hunting for signs of change doesn't work, what does it actually look like when the shift has already happened? Because there are two versions of the list. There's the common one, right? The one you've heard 100 times. You stop checking, doubt turns into quiet knowing, the same old triggers stop impacting you, possible state of gratitude can show up, but not for everyone. That's real, but it's not what I want to give you today because you've already heard it, right? Instead, what I want to give you are the 5 almost nobody really talks about. The first is perception. That itself changes. So nothing external moves, same job, same phone, same room, but you start noticing options, people, openings that you swear weren't there last month. They were always there, but your filter just wasn't tagging them as relevant because your internal state hadn't decided they mattered yet. Now, here's where a lot of people will get this wrong if they're new to manifesting. You'll notice this happening and dismiss it as coincidence, as luck, as, oh, that was just a nice surprise. You won't count it as a sign at all because you're still looking for something bigger, something more dramatic to prove it's working, right? But remember what we said earlier. The RAS was already filtering for you before you consciously noticed anything. So if you're suddenly seeing options you swear weren't there, that's not luck. That's your value tagging already catching up to the decision your identity made. Let's say you've been telling yourself for months, automatically and unconsciously, that opportunities in your field are scarce, that nobody's hiring, and the more you look, the more you receive confirmation that that's true. And then you do a manifestation technique, you get into the state, and out of nowhere you see 3 job postings that fit you perfectly. A friend mentions an opening or someone messages you out of the blue on LinkedIn. If your first instinct is to say, well, that's just a coincidence, catch that thought. Because that's the old identity trying to keep the story consistent. Remember, the system doesn't care whether you're happy, it cares about continuity and your safety. The second is an urge to declutter or distance yourself from a habit, a friendship, a version of your room that you've had for years. I cannot tell you how often I have moved or rearranged an entire room when shifting an identity. And all that is your environment catching up to a decision your identity already made internally to bring things into alignment. You don't consciously decide you want less clutter. You just wake up one day and can't stand the thing you used to tolerate. Now, the friendship one usually throws people because your first thought is something like, did I do something wrong? Is my energy off? Why am I suddenly annoyed by a friendship I've had for years? Like, we're not getting on here, we're not relating. So here's the reframe. That friendship that suddenly feels heavy, that habit that suddenly feels beneath you, that's not you being ungrateful or difficult. That's the version of you that tolerated it. And it no longer wants to be the version of you that's running the show. Now picture this. You've been working on your self-concept or changing your identity around money, deciding you're someone who has more than enough. And suddenly you find yourself wanting to get rid of clothes that you bought when you felt broke, or unfollow accounts that make you feel behind, cancel a subscription you only kept out of scarcity. None of that is random. That's your identity clearing out evidence of the old story, so there's room for the new one. The third one is old insecurities resurfacing. I actually call this the point where the brain throws a tantrum. And this is one people misread, I would say, the most, because it feels like proof it isn't working, especially if you're still using how you feel as a marker of an identity shift. Don't do that. You'll be sitting there thinking, great, I'm finally past it. I'm not going to be triggered by those old reactions, those old 3D circumstances anymore. And then the exact fear you thought you'd released shows right back up, sometimes stronger than ever before. This is the one that makes people panic. You'll think you've gone backwards, that you've undone all your work, that maybe it was never shifting at all. It's actually the opposite. And this happens again and again on the I Am Identity Reset. A client of mine had the hardest day in weeks completely out of nowhere. Crying, stomach in knots, chest feeling tight, that wave of heat, and she just felt that worry and just overall upset. However, she resolved that, caught that old meaning her brain was trying to apply, and 4 days later, the exact same trigger showed up again, and this time, she barely even noticed it. Actually, I had to bring it to her attention how she used to respond, because she didn't follow the old pattern and just got on with her day without a second thought. So the old pattern lost. Sometimes the brain, as I've just said, it throws a tantrum, and that's all it is. It's like darkest before the dawn, the final struggle before it dies psychologically. So if you feel that old insecurity creeping back in right before something good is about to happen, don't take it as evidence you're not ready or you haven't changed. Take it as evidence you're close to a significant identity shift, especially when it's a deep-rooted one, and keep focused on responding differently in alignment with the new version of you. The fourth is what I call a tower moment, a setback right before the shift that looks like everything is falling apart. A job ends, a relationship ends, plans collapse with no warning, and it looks like regression, and everything is basically a disaster. I've experienced this a lot, especially in the early days of this journey. Here's where people usually get it backwards. They'll think, well, clearly it's not working. Look at everything I just lost, and then they'll go back to old coping mechanisms, old coping patterns, right at the exact moment they were close to the shift. It's not regression. It's the old identity being cleared out of your system to make room for the one you're becoming and living more consistently. And it almost always shows up closer to the shift than people expect, not further from it. Think about it structurally. If your old identity built a life around a belief you're now releasing, that life has to loosen its grip somewhere before the new one can actually hold. Say you've been doing the work around relationships, and right in the middle of it, a friendship you've had for years suddenly falls apart, or a situationship you've been holding on to finally ends. That's not God telling you it's not working. That's the old relationship structure, the old definition you had on how relationships should be, which was built around needing that specific person, finally letting go so that the new one has somewhere to land. Chosen, loved, accepted, respected, whatever it is. And the fifth is restlessness. And excess of energy with no clear cause, disrupted sleep, or dreams that feel unusually vivid and specific. This happens every time. This one's easy to miss because it doesn't feel spiritual at all. It just feels like you can't sit still, or you're waking up for no reason, or you had a dream so vivid you're still thinking about it hours later. That's your nervous system recalibrating to a new baseline. It's uncomfortable. It's also one of the most reliable signs on this list because it's the hardest one to fake or talk yourself into. You can convince yourself you feel calm, right? You can't really convince yourself you're restless when you're not. If you notice this happening, don't reach for something to numb it, don't try and distract yourself from it, and don't panic that there's something wrong with you. Your body is doing real work adjusting to who you're becoming. Now here's what to actually do when you notice any of these, because noticing them and knowing what to do with them are two different things, right? When you catch yourself in one of these moments, the first thing is to notice, without doing anything about it yet, is that your body has dropped into a threat response. You'll feel it before you can name it. Tight chest, shallow breath, thoughts trying to solve something with urgency, like right now. Don't argue with the thought, and don't try to talk yourself out of the fear or convince yourself the setback is secretly good news. This doesn't speak English, okay? Your nervous system doesn't believe arguments. It believes evidence. Instead, just put one hand on your chest and on your stomach and breathe out longer than you breathe in. 4 counts in, 6 counts out, and say internally, I'm remaining with myself right now. Not, this is working out, not, I'm manifesting, just, I'm remaining with myself right now, because that's the only claim your nervous system can actually verify in this moment. Do that for 2 or 3 minutes, then go back to whatever you were doing, okay? You must continue on with life. Notice, don't argue, return to present. Notice, don't argue, return to present. So, I'm curious if any of these 5 landed with you. Let me know which one down in the comments. Tell me which of these actually surprised you the most. And if you want to go deeper into where your own identity might be giving authority away right now, I run a 1-hour manifestation diagnosis call. Links are in the description. That's it for today.